My daughter, please. A piece of bread. I am hungry.
You filthy poor woman. You don't deserve my bread. I don't ever want to see you close to me again.
In the kingdom of Ireland, Princess Fiona was known for two things: her beauty and her cruelty. Men traveled from distant villages to ask for her hand in marriage. They brought gold, livestock, woven cloth. Her father, the king, received them in the throne room while Fiona watched from behind a carved screen. Her lips curled in boredom. She rejected them all. Her chambers were filled with things her father had given her. Necklaces of coral and bronze. Mirrors framed in ivory. Silk wrappers that her maid, Cynthia, folded each morning and hung in rows along the wall. "Daddy," she would say, leaning against the doorway of his study, "I need a new necklace." He would send for the metalsmith. "Daddy, I need a new maid. This one is too slow." He would dismiss the girl that same afternoon. The king's advisors tried to speak to him. "Your Majesty, the princess is becoming. She is my everything," he said, and that was the end of it. In the village square, people bowed when she passed. If someone forgot, her guards stepped forward with their canes. No one argued. No one complained. They simply lowered their heads and waited for her footsteps to fade. One afternoon, a farmer named Tund pushed his wooden cart through the market. It was piled high with yams, their skins still dusted with red earth. He was looking over his shoulder, calling to his son, when the wheel caught a stone. The cart tipped. Mud sprayed across Princess Fiona's white wrapper. Tund froze. His son froze. The entire market went silent. Fiona looked down at the brown streaks across her chest, her waist, her legs. She stepped forward and slapped him. The sound echoed between the stalls. "Do you know how much this dress cost?" Her voice was calm, cold. "It could feed your family for a year, you filthy poor fool." Tund dropped to his knees. "Please, my princess. I didn't see." "Guards!" Two men stepped forward. "Smash his crops." Tund's eyes widened. "No, please. My children." But the guards were already moving. They overturned the cart. Yams tumbled into the dirt. They stomped on them, split them open with the heels of their boots. Tund watched, his hands trembling, his throat tight. The other farmers turned away. They couldn't help him. They wouldn't. When the guards finished, Fiona walked past without looking back. That evening, the king called her into his chambers. He sat in his chair by the window, his face lined with worry. "My world," he said gently. "Why do you keep rejecting these men? They are handsome. They are wealthy. They would give you a good life." Fiona sat across from him, her arms folded. "I want a man who will worship the ground I walk on," she said. "Who will adore me. Who will do anything I ask." The king studied her for a long moment. "My daughter," he said slowly. "Sometimes things aren't the way you want them to be." "I am a princess," she said. He didn't answer. The next morning, Fiona dressed in her finest wrapper. She had planned a picnic with two of her friends in the valley beyond the village, where wildflowers grew in thick patches and the air smelled of rain. She walked alone at first, enjoying the quiet. That was when she saw the old woman. She sat beneath a baobab tree, her back against the trunk. Her wrapper was torn at the hem. Her hands shook as she lifted them. "My daughter," she said, her voice thin. "Please. I am hungry. I need a piece of bread." Fiona stopped. She looked at the woman's wrinkled face, her hollowed cheeks, the dirt beneath her fingernails. "I don't have bread," Fiona said. The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Please. And even if I did," Fiona continued, "I wouldn't give it to you. You're not worth it." The old woman's head lowered. Fiona felt a flicker of irritation. She stepped closer. "You filthy poor woman." The slap came without thought. The old woman's head jerked to the side, her body swaying. "Don't ever come near me again." The woman didn't move, didn't speak. When she finally looked up, her eyes were different, darker. "Unless you are kind to people," she whispered, "you will never be free from what befalls you." Fiona turned and walked away. She didn't think about it again. The next morning, she woke to the sound of her own screaming. Her right hand was swollen. The skin stretched tight, the fingers bent at strange angles. Didn't hurt, but it was wrong. Heavy. Couldn't. The king came running. He burst through the door, his robe half-tied, his eyes wide. What happened? Fiona held up her hand, sobbing. I don't know. I woke up like this. The king shouted for the palace doctor. The man examined her hand, pressed his fingers against the swollen joints, held her wrist to the light. I don't know what this is, he said quietly. The king sent for Mama Jojo. Mama Jojo arrived that evening. She was small and bent, her eyes sharp beneath her head wrap. She didn't greet the king. She walked straight to Fiona's bedside and took her hand. She turned it over, studied the bark-like texture forming along the knuckles. This is no ordinary sickness, she said. The king leaned forward. What is it? A curse. From the forest goddess. Fiona's breath caught. Mama Jojo turned to her. What did you do? Fiona hesitated. Then she told her. The old woman. A meadow. The slap. Mama Jojo's face hardened. You slapped a goddess. The king stood. This is not her fault. It is your fault, Mama Jojo said, her voice cutting through his. You spoiled her. You let her treat people like dirt. I've been hearing the stories. The farmer. The market women. The children who run when she walks by. The king opened his mouth, then closed it. Mama Jojo turned back to Fiona. If you want this curse to go away, you must apologize to everyone you have wronged. And you must be kind. If you treat anyone badly again, your hand will grow back into a tree branch. And it will keep growing until there is nothing left of you. She left without another word. By the next morning, the entire village knew. The market women celebrated. The farmers laughed. The children whispered about it in the streets. Fiona stayed in her room for 3 days. But on the 4th morning, she looked at her hand. The bark had spread to her wrist. The fingers were stiff, immovable. She stood. She dressed. She walked into the village. Cynthia walked beside her, silent and watchful. Fiona found Tun first. He was in his field, bent over a row of seedlings. When he saw her, he straightened slowly, his face wary. She stopped a few feet away. I'm sorry, she said. He stared at her. I was wrong. I shouldn't have destroyed your crops. I shouldn't have treated you that way. Tun didn't smile. But after a long moment, he nodded. When Fiona looked down at her hand, the bark had lightened. Just slightly. She went to Mom and Ketchy next. The old market woman was sitting outside her stall, shelling groundnuts into a clay bowl. When she saw Fiona approaching, her hand stopped moving. Fiona stood before her, aware of the other women watching from nearby stalls. Mom and Ketchy, she said. I came to apologize. The woman said nothing. I spoke to you badly. I treated you with disrespect. You didn't deserve that. Mom and Ketchy set down the bowl. She looked at Fiona's hand, then at her face. You think sorry makes it better? Her voice was quiet, not angry. Just tired. No, Fiona said. But I had to say it anyway. The woman studied her for a long time. Then she picked up her bowl again. Go on then, she said. It wasn't forgiveness. But it wasn't rejection either. When Fiona walked away, the bark had receded another inch. The days became a pattern. Big. Rest. Walk to the village. Apologize. Return home. Some people accepted her words. Some didn't. An old weaver named Folklore spat at her feet. A young mother simply turned her back. But Fiona kept going. At night, she sat in her chambers and watched her hand by candlelight. The transformation was slow, uneven. Some mornings it looked almost human. Other mornings the bark had crept back up her forearm. Cynthia brought her meals, set them on the table without speaking. One evening, as she turned to leave, Fiona called to her. Cynthia. The girl stopped, her hand on the door. "I'm sorry," Fiona said. "For all the times I was cruel to you. For the way I spoke to you." Cynthia didn't turn around. Her shoulders were rigid. "You threw water on me once," she said softly. "Because it wasn't cold enough." Fiona remembered. She had been 15. The memory made her stomach turn. "I know," she said. Cynthia stood there for a moment longer. Then she left, closing the door gently behind her. 2 weeks after the curse began, Fiona went to see Mr. Lawson. He was the village schoolteacher, a thin man with kind eyes who had once asked to marry her. She had laughed in his face in front of the entire court. His school was a single room with wooden benches and a chalkboard. She found him there in the late afternoon, erasing lessons from the day. He saw her in the doorway and froze. "Mr. Lawson," she said. He set down the cloth, waited. "I treated you terribly," she said. "What I did was cruel. You didn't deserve that." He looked at her for a long time. Then he walked to his desk and sat down. "Do you know why I asked to marry you?" he said. Fiona shook her head. "Because I thought beneath all that anger, there was someone worth knowing." He folded his hands on the desk. "I was wrong." The words struck her like a physical blow. "But maybe I'm not wrong now," he said quietly. He stood and walked past her, out into the evening. She stood alone in the empty classroom, her hand trembling. When she looked down, the bark had pulled back to her knuckles. 3 weeks in, something changed. Fiona had finished her apologies to those she remembered wronging. But her hand hadn't fully healed. The fingers were still stiff, the skin still rough. She sat in the palace garden, frustrated and afraid. "It's not enough," she said to Cynthia, who had come to bring her water. "Maybe it's not about saying sorry," Cynthia said carefully. "Maybe it's about doing something." Fiona looked up at her. The next morning, Fiona went to Tun's farm. He was there with his son, planting new seedlings in neat rows. "Can I help?" she asked. Tun straightened, surprised. His son stared. "You want to work?" "Yes." He hesitated, then handed her a small hoe. "Start there." The work was harder than she expected. The sun beat down on her neck. Her back ached. Her good hand blistered. But she kept going. By midday, she had planted an entire row. Tund brought her water. "Thank you," he said simply. When she looked at her cursed hand that night, 2 fingers had returned to normal. She went back the next day. And the day after that. She helped Mom and Ketchy carry her baskets to market. She sat with the weaver Folake and learned to thread the loom, though her wooden fingers made it difficult. She read stories to the children at Mr. Lawson's school, stumbling over words she had never bothered to learn properly. The village watched, suspicious at first, then curious, then slowly accepting. One afternoon, she was carrying water from the well when a young girl approached her. She couldn't have been more than 7, her hair braided in tight rows. "Princess," the girl said shyly, "can you help me carry this?" She held up a clay pot, too large for her small arms. Fiona knelt down. "Of course." She lifted the pot with her good hand, steadying it against her hip. Together, they walked to the girl's home. When the girl's mother saw them, her eyes widened. She said nothing, but she nodded once. That night, Fiona's hand was completely healed. She stood in front of the mirror in her chambers, turning her hand over and over. The skin was smooth. The fingers moved freely. She could barely believe it. But Mama Jojo's words echoed in her mind. "If you treat anyone badly again, your hand will grow back into a tree branch." The curse wasn't gone. It was waiting. The next week, a man came to the palace. He was young, well-dressed, with a confident smile. He had traveled from a neighboring kingdom to ask for Fiona's hand in marriage. The king received him in the throne room. Fiona sat beside her father, her hands folded in her lap. The man spoke of his wealth, his lands, his family's influence. He barely looked at her. When he finished, the king turned to Fiona. "What do you think, my daughter?" She looked at the man. At his expensive robes, his dismissive eyes. "I think," she said slowly, "that he should ask me himself." The man blinked. "What?" "You've been speaking to my father," she said. "Not to me." He frowned. "It's customary." "I'm right here," she said. The man's face darkened. He stood. "I did not travel all this way to be lectured by a woman." Fiona felt a familiar heat rise in her chest. The urge to snap at him, to have him thrown out. But she caught herself. She took a breath. "Then you've wasted your journey," she said calmly. "Safe travels home." The man stormed out. The king looked at her, surprised. When she was alone, she checked her hand. It was still smooth. Still human. She had passed the test. Months went by. Fiona continued to work in the village. She learned the names of people she had never bothered to know. She helped plant crops, mend roofs, tend to sick children. The villagers began to greet her in the streets. Not with fear but with respect. One evening, she was walking home from the market when she saw a figure beneath the baobab tree. Her heart stopped. It was the old woman. Fiona approached slowly, her pulse racing. The woman looked the same as before. Frail, bent, her wrapper worn. But her eyes were clear. "Goddess," Fiona whispered, and she knelt. The woman smiled. "You've learned." "I have," Fiona said. "Thank you." The woman reached out and touched Fiona's hand, the one that had been cursed. Her fingers were warm. "The curse remains," she said. "But you are free. Free. You understand now what it means to be human." The woman stood. She walked into the forest, and though Fiona tried to follow, she disappeared between the trees like smoke. One afternoon, she was walking through the square when a child kicked a ball toward her. It hit her wrapper, leaving a smudge of red dust across the white fabric. The child's eyes went wide. He turned to run. "Wait," Fiona said. The boy stopped. The other children stopped. The entire market seemed to hold its breath. Fiona bent down. She picked up the ball. She smiled. "Here," she said, handing it to him. The boy took it slowly, his face uncertain. Then someone clapped. Then another. Then the entire square erupted in cheers. Fiona stood there, her hand fully healed, and for the first time in her life, she felt something other than pride. She felt shame. And then, beneath it, something lighter. Weeks later, she invited the villagers to the palace. She stood before them in the courtyard, her father watching from the steps. "I was wrong," she said. "I treated you all badly. I thought I was better than you. I wasn't." He paused. "I'm sorry." The crowd was silent. Then one by one they nodded. Tun stepped forward from the crowd. He held something in his hands, a small bundle wrapped in cloth. "Princess," he said, "we brought you something." He unwrapped the cloth. Inside were yam seedlings, their roots carefully preserved in damp soil. "For your garden," he said. "So you remember where you came from." Fiona's throat tightened. She took the bundle carefully. "Thank you," she whispered. Mom and Ketchy came forward next. She placed a small woven basket at Fiona's feet. "For carrying," she said simply. One by one, the villagers approached. They brought gifts, not expensive things but useful ones. Clay pot, a wooden spoon, a length of cotton cloth. Things they had made with their own hands. Fiona accepted each one, her vision blurring with tears. When the last person had given their gift, she looked out at the crowd. "I don't deserve this," she said. "No," Mom and Ketchy said. "But we give it anyway. That's what kindness is." That night, the king found her in the garden. She was kneeling in the dirt, planting the yam seedlings Tund had given her. He watched her for a moment before speaking. "I'm proud of you," he said. Fiona didn't look up. She pressed the soil around a seedling, making sure it was secure. "I should have learned this a long time ago," she said. The king knelt beside her. His knees cracked and he winced, but he stayed down. "I failed you," he said quietly. "I gave you everything except what you needed." Fiona paused. She looked at her father, really looked at him, and saw the lines around his eyes, the gray in his beard, the weight he carried. "You loved me," she said. "That wasn't the problem. Then what was? You never told me no." The king was silent. Then he picked up one of the seedlings and began to dig a hole for it. They worked together in the fading light, father and daughter, planting things that would take months to grow. Months later, during the harvest festival, Fiona stood at the edge of the celebration. The village square was filled with music and dancing. Children ran between the stalls, their faces painted with clay. The smell of roasted corn and spiced meat filled the air. She saw Tun dancing with his wife, Mom and Ketchy laughing with the other market women, Mr. Lawson clapping along to the drums, a shy smile on his face. Cynthia appeared beside her, holding 2 cups of palm wine. "Not joining them?" she asked. Fiona took a cup. In a moment, they stood together watching the celebration. "Do you ever regret it?" Cynthia asked. "The curse, I mean. What it cost you?" Fiona looked down at her hand. In the firelight, she could still see the faint lines where the bark had been. They would never fully disappear. "No," she said. "It gave me back my life." Cynthia smiled. "Then it wasn't a curse at all." Fiona considered this. Then she drained her cup and set it down. "Come on," she said, taking Cynthia's hand. "Let's dance." They walked into the square together. The villagers made room for them, and when the drums started again, Fiona moved with them, no longer above them but among them. The curse remained beneath her skin, waiting. But she no longer feared it. She had learned what it meant to be human. And that was more precious than any crown. End.